Let's talk about music publishing. Musical works, if you are the creator of that musical work and you own that musical work outright and you haven't given those rights away or licensed them or assigned them to someone else, you are the owner of the copyright, which means you're the publisher. That's right. Basically, music publishing is ownership of copyrights. And that's why it's so important to know what copyrights are, because they are what drives the music publishing industry. Publishers own copyrights. And if you haven't given your copyright away or assigned it to someone else, you are your own publisher. And you have access to all sorts of money. However, there are 4 primary types of music publishing revenue: mechanicals, public performance, synchronization, and other, which we also sometimes call ancillary. Mechanicals, or mechanical royalties, stem from your right to reproduce, because mechanicals are generated from the reproduction of your musical work into the form of a phonorecord or a sound recording. So whenever someone reproduces your musical work, they are making a mechanical reproduction. Mechanical royalties derived from your right to reproduce are a huge source of income, because whenever anyone reproduces your musical work, that's you, or that's someone else who makes a cover version of your musical work, every time that cover is reproduced and sold, you get paid. Now, public performance royalties can be complicated. Whenever someone performs your musical work in public, it generates a public performance royalty. TV, radio, supermarket, elevator, when you're on hold with the hotel receptionist, that's all a public performance. And depending on the time of day the performance was made, depending on the capacity or the audience, meaning the number of people who heard the performance, depending on the length of the performance, the royalty can differ. But all of those performances have to be made either in public, in a public place, or by device transmitted to a public place, like the radio. The right to public performance royalties is derived directly from your copyright ownership in the right to public performance. Synchronization rights for musical works are actually derived from several of your copyrights. Why? Because you have to reproduce the musical work in conjunction with images, which in a way is making a derivative of the musical work. And of course, you have to also perform it. So a synchronization is when you take your song, your composition, or your musical work, and you combine it with images. That's called a synchronization. And it's really important that when someone synchronizes, or syncs for short, your musical work with images, that you give them permission to do so. Why? Well, images can actually change the meaning, the context, the feel of your musical work. And you, as the owner of the musical work and the owner of the right to make derivatives, control whatever the feel or vibe or message of your song is. So it's really important, if it's going to be combined with images, that you know it and you give express permission to make that change. And finally, the 4th primary revenue stream for those of you who own your own musical works is other or ancillary. So basically, if it's not a mechanical, meaning a mechanical reproduction of your musical work, if it's not a public performance, and if it's not a synchronization, it's probably an other or an ancillary use. What are ancillary uses? Things like ringtones, greeting cards, toys. Would you believe you can actually put a musical work inside of a shoe and have the shoe play the song as you walk? I think I saw that in a kid's shoe once. There are also grand rights when your musical work is being used in conjunction on the stage with a play or somehow being used in the theater. And finally, print. That's right. You can actually produce sheet music of your song. You can reproduce the sheet music. You can distribute the sheet music. And you can even make derivatives of the sheet music. So all of those uses, which we call ancillary uses, fall into the other category. Once again, 4 primary revenue streams for the ownership of your copyright in your songs or musical works: mechanicals, public performance, synchronization, and other. If you are a songwriter who also owns your own musical work, you are also your own publisher. If that's the case, you get what we call the writer share and the publisher share of all of the revenue that the song generates. But let's say you have a music publisher, meaning you assigned the copyrights in your musical works to a publishing company. You probably have a publishing deal. Publishing deals vary, meaning sometimes the publisher owns 100% of the copyright in exchange for all of the work they're going to do exploiting the copyright on your behalf, including collecting the money. Or there may be times where the publisher owns only a percentage of the copyright. Let's say you keep half, they get half. That's referred to as a co-pub or a co-publishing deal. Anytime you retain some of the copyright and the publisher owns the rest. What's happening in a co-pub is you get to split the revenue, meaning you get the writer share because you're the writer, but you also get a percentage of the publisher share because you're part publisher. Publishing deals can be rather complicated, so make sure that you always have a lawyer when you're negotiating one. But for the most part, whether you're your own publisher or if you have a publisher working as your partner on your behalf, the revenue streams remain the same.